We also, for those of you that are not aware, we have a pastor, Debra Williams, who serves faithfully with one of our churches in the conference, and had the opportunity to be ordained last year, but was not. I'm going to address that in just a few moments, but there are some people from the congregation that have been invited to come up and just share a brief word, and so I invite them to come up now, if they're here.
Thank you. Nina, David, and Ryan. Yeah. I got him.
Thanks. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Okay. Sure.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to address you. There are many gifts I have been given in the years of friendship with Debra Williams. One of the gifts I treasure most is our connected stories, being an African American woman and being an Asian American woman. One such story emerged one day as we were driving down the 110 to an event. Debra was driving, and I was talking about my struggle with ancestor worship in my family of origins history. To worship the ancestors, you bring food, rice wine, incense, and spirit money to provide for them in the next life. Otherwise, they are not happy and will cause trouble for you. Debra turned to me and said, "What kind of God is that you have to bring everything for them?" I clenched internally. This is my culture. And then a tidal wave of deep knowing that Debra loved me enough to speak the truth. I knew I was loved, so I could risk and let go of what I saw and experienced through my Asian American eyes and look through her African American eyes at ancestor worship. I burst out laughing and said, "You're absolutely right. What kind of God is that needs you to bring everything?" And then we rocked that car going south on the 110 with worship. Worship of a God that gave everything, holding nothing back for our sakes. Our stories, so different in the particulars, yet a commonness began to emerge underneath the particulars. Two stories of suffering and loss. Two stories of love and courage, and ultimately, two stories of being transformed by the good news story of Jesus Christ. At the memorial service for Debra in January, Pastor Gene Birch, a leading civic leader and the unofficial bishop, some would say, of the Altadena Pasadena area churches, said Debra was a pastor to pastors. The community recognized her as one who had been sent to them to minister. I am grateful to be one of those who had received her ministry.
For close to 10 years, Debra and I served together at a church where she was the youth director and I was the involved parent. The highlights of our week-to-week mentoring of high school youth was our annual mission trips. And during those years, we went to downtown LA a few times, San Francisco, Camden, New Jersey, Pasadena area. Our youth group didn't suffer the challenges of some suburban youth groups. We were already multicultural, and many of us were very familiar with urban challenges as well. However, teaching our kids to be ready and willing to see God in the midst of the everyday, to expect to see God in the other, that is countercultural and challenging for any of us. And that's what Debra sought to do with our youth, to teach them that others are persons that we simply, that we are to engage in relationship. So much of our downtown time was walking around, engaging people, seeing what happened next, whether we were at a soup kitchen, meeting people in Pershing Square, playing with kids at an after-school program in Watts or in Camden. Being with Debra on these trips was always exciting and unpredictable. I imagine it was a bit like the disciples being with Jesus. You just didn't know, you didn't know what was going to happen, but you were simply thankful you had a front row seat. Debra was always ready to engage people with stories, love, laughter, song, prayer. She didn't display fear. We were in some very tough and possibly dangerous situations in some very hurting neighborhoods. She also didn't lose her patience. I saw her spend hours with youth group kids without food, water, hot days downtown, and she still always was there for the other. One time stuck out to me. The youth group, Debra and I, were walking in Skid Row when we came to a church that had a karaoke night right on the street. The homeless were invited to come and sing any song they wanted, and simply to sing their heart out, and everyone else would cheer and support them. Of course, Debra always jumped right into whatever opportunity there was. But the songs we were singing were secular songs, sort of top 40 songs, some more oldies than contemporary. And Debra had long ago decided that she was to be a gospel singer rather than a secular career, which she could have done. So here she was with an opportunity at a karaoke on Skid Row. And so I was intrigued what she was going to do as she went forward to sing. Well, she got up there and belted out the following song from Aretha Franklin, looking at the people, but looking up to God as well, at times hands raised. And so she said, looking out on the morning rain, I used to feel so inspired, and when I knew I had to face another day, Lord, it made me feel so tired. For the day I met you, life was so unkind, but you're the key to my peace of mind, because you make me feel like, she sang, a natural woman. And she turned this into a worship song. So her next verse was, when my soul was in the lost and found, you came along to claim it. I didn't know just what was wrong with me till your kiss helped me name it. Now I'm no longer doubtful of what I'm living for, and if I make you happy, I don't need to do more. Oh Lord, what you've done to me, you make me feel so good inside, and I just want to be close to you. You make me feel so alive. That night, that possibly just secular space of just singing songs became a holy place. It became sacred. Everyone started cheering, singing, and worshiping with Debra. Seeing the hurting, the troubled stand up with joy and sing out their hearts, I saw heaven that night. I really did. I felt like this is heaven right here. It was like that way everywhere for Debra. She was a very natural woman who always invited those around her, living in the everyday, and she invited them into holy places, all the while not leaving the ordinary. Having spent time with Debra, the ordinary didn't seem so ordinary anymore. It felt lighter, it felt manageable, it felt peaceful. Full of abundant life, ready laughter, passionate worship, and a fierce love, I know God and heaven better because of the life of Debra Williams.
Debra's faith and love for God, for whom she served every single day of her life, was best demonstrated when we were informed by the doctor that she had stage 3 cancer. Instead of reacting like most of us would in receiving such a devastating news, Debra, instead of focusing on herself, saw how devastated her doctor was by having to deliver this type of news. She went into pastoral mode and asked the doctor, could she pray for her? You could see the doctor was totally amazed by this, and without hesitation allowed Debra to pray for her. I myself, in the midst of my own devastation, was in awe of what I was witnessing. After praying, the doctor hugged Debra and said in all her years of being a doctor, she had never experienced such a profound moment. And she, too, was in awe of Debra's courage. But it was easy for Debra because of her unwavering faith in God. Then there was another time when I had to rush Debra to the hospital. She was so weak and in such indescribable pain. But while waiting in the emergency room to be admitted, there was a young man there who seemed to have a dislocated shoulder or a broken collarbone and was in pain, but nothing like the pain Debra was experiencing. Yet she called the young man over, asked him his name, and offered to pray for him. She was so weak, but yet she felt the need to pray for this young man. After praying, Debra asked him, had he been waiting for a long time? And he responded, yes, ma'am, it's been a very long wait. Within 30 seconds, they called out for him to go see the doctor. So you see where I'm going with this. And my phone. After witnessing these two remarkable acts of faith, love, and courage, I said to myself, who does something like this except an angel from God, anointed to do his work? I give these two examples to show how Debra always put others before herself. One day I was going through Debra's many journals and came across a few folded papers, and God whispered in my ear to open up one particular paper. After reading it, I now know why. It is what I now call Debra's Creed, and in closing, I'd like to share it with you. I will pray when things look bad. I will pray when things look good. I will move forward when others stand still. I will trust in God when obstacles arise. I will work when the task is overwhelming. And I will get up when I fall down. My calling is to reach, which I think this was most important with her, to reach every person for God. He is too serious to be taken lightly, too urgent to be postponed, too final to be ignored, too relevant to be overlooked, too significant to be trivialized, too eternal to be fleeing, and too passionate to be quenched. I know my mission. I know my challenge. I also know my limitations, my weaknesses, my fears, my problems, and I know my God. Let others get the praise. Let the church get the blessings. May God get the glory. I am a servant. I serve God and serve the people. This is who I am, and this is what I do.